Hello ladies and gents, I'm DKD6.
I'm Nexus Device, and welcome to DeeKay Nexus Discussions, Episode 4.
And today we're talking about Microsoft unifying the Xbox and the PC platforms. So yeah, let's get on with it.
Woo!
Okay, so as you all know, this is episode 4 of our show. We're still calling it DeeKay Nexus Discussions because we are stupid and we do not know what else to call it, so we're just going to roll
I say
with
we
it.
just roll with it now.
Yeah, but people think that we're talking about Dungeons and frickin' Dragons.
How is that a bad thing?
Well, firstly, I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons.
It doesn't matter. The internet's full of nerds, and we're nerds, and just accept nerd culture, and you'll be fine.
You can be a nerd, I'm a geek.
Uh-huh. It's
Big
now
difference.
gone into a blanket term, dude.
Blah, blah. Anyways, as you may have heard, and as our listeners may have heard, Microsoft had a conference last week. It was like a media briefing, which was behind closed doors for the media only, and they had a non-disclosure agreement, which ended today. Well, technically yesterday for me here in the UK. And the big news that came out of it, there were various topics, but the biggest part of it was Microsoft unifying the PC and Xbox One platforms, which is effectively ending fixed console hardware, which I think is extremely interesting. And from the people I've spoken to so far, it seems to be split right down the middle. Some people think it's a great idea, and some people think that Phil Spencer has lost his freaking mind.
I don't know. It really depends on how your view of, what a console or what you want out of your platform is, right? I mean, you really just want to have the box that's plug and play and you're ready to go, or are you into the super longevity of, a new unified platform? It's something different. So I guess it would be either scary or it's hard to understand on what you want to kind of do to move forward with. So we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah. I think one thing that we really should do is explain to the less technical listener what the hell we're actually talking about, because me sitting here saying unifying Xbox and PC might mean nothing to the average consumer. So why is this a big deal? This is a big deal because Microsoft is effectively turning the Xbox platform into kind of like a Steam box platform, which works in conjunction with the PC. So as you know, the Xbox One launched. After that, Windows 10 launched on the PC. Windows 10 was then moved over onto the Xbox One as the new Xbox One experience. And now what they're doing is they're actually calling it the Unified Windows applications, which run on the Unified Windows platform. So, God, this is such a bitch to talk about because it's lots of acronyms, but bear with me. Okay, go on.
I think the easiest way to explain it is think of it more as a change in software platform rather than a hardware platform. Instead of, how for those of you who have an Xbox Live account or a Windows Live account, same thing, Microsoft account in general, you have all the different licenses and games and content that you have that's attached to that account, and how you access it, whether it be a physical copy or through the digital content. Obviously, it has to have a supported platform. What Microsoft is essentially wanting to do is to absolutely unify all of that content to work on all their platforms simultaneously, and in essence, creating an eternal platform that all your content will never go bad on. You don't have to worry about upgrading or just abandoning your library of content just because the hardware specs change.
Oh, that was really good. Did you have that written down? You've been taking notes, haven't you?
No, that's literally just me ranting.
No, that was really well done. I should get that printed out and framed. That was perfectly put. Yeah, so what Nexus has just explained, it's exactly that. Microsoft is, well, they make the Windows platform and obviously the Xbox platform. If you join them together, it becomes the biggest gaming platform on the planet. Um, so the most interesting thing about this is that what Phil Spencer came out and said was when you launch a console like the Xbox One or the Xbox 360, what you're essentially doing is you're launching um, a hardware device which stays as is for the next 6 to 8 years. And that's a problem, especially nowadays, because the PC architecture is so far ahead of consoles now, which really wasn't the case last generation. So the problem that Xbox and PlayStation have right now, and even when they launched, was that both consoles launched and they were both underpowered. So what Microsoft is doing is instead of releasing the Xbox 2 or the Xbox 4 or whatever the hell they're going to call it, they are essentially updating the Xbox One over time. So it's becoming like your mobile phone, where you have an iPhone 4, an iPhone 5, an iPhone 6, whatever. They all run the same applications, even though the hardware has been updated. So the point is, you buy a license to play a game, let's say Gears of War, or no, actually, perfect example, Quantum Break, which is coming out soon. You buy it on your Xbox One as a digital copy. With that, you get the Windows 10 license for free because it's a cross-buy title. And when you play it on your Xbox One, you can stop playing on your Xbox One, move over to your PC, and continue where you left off because it's one unified Windows application, that's Quantum Break, running on the unified Windows platform, which is Windows 10, which is on the Xbox and your PC. So the point is, they can upgrade the Xbox, you can upgrade your PC, and all of your software will just continue working. So you won't have these situations where you have the launch of an Xbox One and your Xbox 360 games don't work, and then you have to go back and manufacture a way to have backwards compatibility. The point is that you don't lose all of your games when you release a new platform. So I think that's really, really cool.
Well, I think that the concept of not having to worry about all this different hardware specs and all that other stuff. I mean, that's definitely a big change. And it's a huge change in business model as well. How's that going to affect the industry? To be honest, we all know that I know that some people try staving off, myself included, on the effects of digital distribution. I love me some physical copies, but the way that content is moving now, you would just have that license, and it would basically as it should be able to move between pretty much any digital platform. I mean, why lock it down to a single piece of hardware when if you can have that license and you can get it to work on pretty much anything, why not? So it has pluses and minuses to it. What a console is explained as now is a platform that it has a set piece of hardware parameters, and they have specifically designed software that works with that. Um, and there's a whole myriad of different variables that affect what people spend money on and how much the industry spends in production costs and all the other stuff. So that's a whole nother can of worms to open. But how is that going to affect developers? How it's going to affect the consumer? I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions on what this is or could be, or is going to be, as far as how the dice are gonna fall and how it's actually gonna play out.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of interesting quotes here from Phil Spencer, which I think I should quote. I'll paraphrase. He basically says that in other ecosystems, you get a more continuous innovation in hardware, which you rarely see in consoles because of what I just said before. They have like a 7 year lifespan or whatever. And you lock the hardware and software platforms in place when you launch. So, what he's actually doing is allowing them to split the software side and the hardware side of the Xbox platform. So that means that the Xbox One is actually becoming more like a PC. So Microsoft releases updated versions at regular intervals rather than almost every decade with more powerful processors or graphical hardware or whatever. So in theory, because all of the games are written as universal Windows apps, they'll work no matter what the hardware is. So one of his quotes, which I liked, was now I'll read this verbatim. He says, "We can effectively feel a little bit more like what we see on the PC, where I can still go back and run my old Quake and Doom games, but then I can also see the best 4K games coming out. Hardware innovation continues and software takes advantage. I don't have to jump generation and lose everything I played before." So I really think this is a good idea. I don't think people are going to like it until they actually understand the benefits of it. It's like a Steam library which moves with you rather than being exclusive to PC. It's on the Windows platform rather than Xbox, Steam, PlayStation, whatever. It's
Well,
on the platform.
to be fair, if we're comparing it to a Steam library, not all of those games are actually continually updated for the same operating system. You'll have games that will only run on XP. I think like Midnight Club, for instance, on Steam still only runs on XP. We're not on Vista, and there's still a lot of installation problems with older PC games. So we'll have to see actually how it really does play out. I understand that this is also a modern concept. So they're building the concept um, from the ground up, expecting these issues, so that may, curve the troubleshooting that developers are going to have with that ahead of time. Unlike PC, to where it's evolved from the operating system um, instead of the games around the operating system. This is the operating system around the content. It's the other way around on this one, but we'll see how the developers handle it and what happens.
Yes,
As literally only time will tell. We'll have to look 20 years down the line and say, hey, does this 20-year-old piece of software without any updates for the past 15 years work on this current build of software? You know,
it would have to. For this
it
to
it
work, it would have
would
to.
have to. The concept of that would have to, and we'll see. And that's the thing, is support. Support's always been a huge deal, especially with new digital content. Like somebody buys a license to something, whether it be music or a video game or a movie, and you have to have the ability to play it on your modern devices in some sort of way without too much hassle. And that's I think the big deal about the consoles is that obviously it's not, you can take a PlayStation 1 game and pop it into PS4 anymore. I mean, you could do that by then they'd have to make backwards compatible emulation programs, but again, you'd have to actually make the concept of backwards compatibility because it wouldn't run natively. In this concept, everything runs natively
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah, exactly. Hmm. It's interesting because when I first heard about this, you and I both thought that they would release some sort of box that you connect to your Xbox One and it adds processing power to it. And it may well be that because Phil Spencer always went on to say that Sony is doing a similar thing with PlayStation VR, where all of the processing isn't being done on the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation VR actually comes with a separate box which connects to your PlayStation 4, and that box has another processor in
I
it.
mean, is that through like the USB 3.0 ports on the systems? I mean, that's the only like easy one. I know with PS4 you can crack it open and upgrade the hard drive, for example, and that's what an internal SATA connection. So I mean, you could theoretically use that as an expansion port, but there's I don't think there's any
There's not
expansion ports on any of these current consoles. At least I haven't fiddled around and seen anything. I mean, you go back into like the fifth and sixth generation consoles, and you see expansion ports left and right. You've seen that since the original like freaking NES. There's actually a freaking like a SCART connection on that NES. I mean, you see tons of different stuff, but nowadays they don't have those expansion ports anymore.
Yeah, that's because I think USB 3 is fast enough nowadays. With those things, I think you had to have a big old expansion pot to expansion pot. I said
Yeah, you had
expansion
to you
pot.
had to have a direct you had to have a direct connection between the board and your processing components instead of having to go through an external connection um standard.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
let's look at it this way. I mean, I've got a 1 terabyte external drive hooked up to my Xbox One via USB 3, and my games run better off the external drive than they do for on my internal drive. That just proves how fast USB 3 actually is. The USB 3 will be
Well, it,
fine.
it is really fast, but at the same time, when you design these things, there's a reason why they have these direct like serial ports and crazy shit like that. It's because a lot of these electrical engineers actually design these boards. I mean, down to like the freaking micron
Yeah.
of material to adjust the speed, because that actually does affect performance
Hmm.
greatly. That's why they like having ports that plug in directly into the main board on these products, because you plug it in, bam, and you're there. You don't have to worry about any lag time between the, any other external devices or anything crazy like that. But again, I know neither of us is an electrical engineer, so let's just go away from, we know exactly what we're talking about, but that's at least what I got on that, on why they haven't done that yet. But that, and it does raise the question of, I keep on hearing that Xbox One is cloud processing, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Isn't that supposed to be the future? I mean, and then it comes down to another thing of the way that I was seeing it is that game consoles, just as a game console, let's just talk about it. The Xbox One, or game consoles in general, I've been seeing a trend of, and I can see in the next 20 years, to where you could just have a streaming box, and you have a digital environment. That's Everything's done in the cloud. So it's not like you need to expand your hardware at all. All you need is something to support your, gameplay input, whether it be mouse, keyboard, or controller, and other sound devices, and your TV out. You technically don't need to upgrade hardware at that point. You just need to make sure the operating system works, and you have your freaking stream boxes. Who knows what it's going to be in the next 20 or 30 years?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they did do that with, oh god, what was that god awful? What was that
Yeah,
console called? I
that
had it.
I
What was it? What was it called? The God, it'll
Look
come to
back
me.
of his earlier videos, you'll probably see that. But yes, there was a streaming service that failed miserably, but that was games only. But what I'm
What was
seeing
it called?
happening is that they'll be having, games that use native processing but borrowing processing power from the cloud. And then I just see the development once they get that technology started to, fleshed out a little more, and where it's working more, as it actually performance increases, they'll start to devote more and more to cloud processing.
Yeah, you've got
And
Nvidia doing that right now with
yeah,
the Nvidia Grid.
I've used it on my Shield tablet,
That's right.
and
Yeah,
so yeah, I've seen all the how that works. Yes, you do have to have a fast internet connection, but I'm sure that the structure is there for, streaming to start taking over. So tying back into the topic of how this unified, ecosystem is going to be affected, we may not even see native processing anymore, uh, in the next 20 or 30 years, which is a shame in my opinion. That's what I geek out over. I
yeah, same here.
love having that power in my hand. I love having that, personal user control and power in my possession. But that's a whole nother debate. But that's where I can see the industry going. That's where I see electronics going, where you're not dependent on the actual device. You're just dependent on your connection to the internet, and what power you can actually receive instead of have in your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. So that's a big deal on what the electronics industry is going to be doing for the next few decades.
Yeah, I mean everything's going that way though. I mean, we used to have Blockbuster Video, and that's dead, and now we have Netflix. It's pretty much the same thing. Hardware being replaced by digital on-demand content.
Yep. And when you can actually just, demand the software without having the hardware to run it, because they can just give you the service, but you don't need the supported hardware. I guess it's just that much easier for them to distribute all of it.
Yeah, I think there's a really,
So,
really cool, curious symmetry to all of this, where when things started out years ago, decades ago, it all used to be a client server sort of setup where people would go to work, they'd have a dumb terminal. It was known as a dumb terminal because that terminal had no onboard processing and everything was being streamed from a really big, powerful server somewhere. So it was a client server sort of
Yep,
setup.
and you'd remote in, and I mean they still do that now to where you'd have your dummy terminal, and then you just remote into your server in question, whether it be your own virtual desktop or a dedicated machine just for you. They use that all the time now, but again, uh, I just how the industry is moving on licensing now, less on individual software installations and more on, I guess, data management. But again, back on to topic of how does it, did Phil Spencer give any more um, comments on how he's hoping to move forward with this?
No, not exactly. This is well, he touched on it, but they asked him afterwards anyways, and he said that he doesn't want to give away their roadmap yet, but he said, and I'll read this, it's a quote. He goes, "When you look on the console space, I believe we will see more hardware innovation in the console space more than we've ever seen. You'll actually see us come out with new hardware capability during a generation, allowing the same games to run backwards and forwards compatible because we have a Universal Windows application running on top of the Universal Windows platform. That allows us to focus more and more on hardware innovation without invalidating the games that run on the platform." So he's basically saying that they'll come out with new hardware capability, but he doesn't say how. He doesn't say if it's a replacement Xbox or if you take your Xbox
Um,
into a service center for an upgrade or if you attach something via USB 3.
well,
I have no
let's go
idea.
into the concept of like the HoloLens, for instance, and how hardware works with software now.
Well,
We have that
HoloLens doesn't need a PC, it's PC
e-
free.
exactly. But let's just say you have that content that's streamed to you or your license that works with it, regardless of where it's processed. All that you need to do is make sure that that license and content is accessible to you. And
Yeah.
let's just throw up I guess, a pipe dream, but or I guess it would be another incarnation of this. The HoloLens, at least the concept at its best, would be you could be walking around, it would augment your reality around you and your vision to where you're like, I want to play Xbox. Let me just throw up a screen in my vision and let me just, grab this controller that's now connected to, via the other peripheral where it's synced now. I'm going to access my game and I'm just going to play right here on the couch or, in the car running off whatever Wi-Fi connection.
They
It's
did that with Halo 5 on the HoloLens.
Exactly. You can throw up a screen wherever, as long as you have a controller linked to it, and navigate that way. And you're done. Heck, you have perfect vision. You can make it how big you want. All that other stuff. That there's benefits to that technology. And again, it's about that unified environment to where you have the content that you've purchased on your Microsoft account and you can move about wherever you want on pretty much almost any platform, which is what I'm sure that they're really going for, which
Yeah.
will show off all of their other technology.
Yeah. I think this is really interesting, and if they do it right and they don't alienate the user base, I think this can actually be a viable option for moving forward with the Xbox platform.
The only thing that I hope that they do is whenever you're innovating, I anything that innovates well always has a fallback plan to make it functional in today's market. That's like, for instance, um, as long as they're able to make a platform and have that option of that expansion, but still, let's say everything just something hits the fan and they realize that it's not going to pan out. As long as their existing hardware and infrastructure will still play out in the today's market and do its job properly without any more support that they need, that's fine, because then they can come up with Plan B, saying, well, let's roll into the next generation and try again with something new.
Yeah.
But if they start to, invest their time and effort only into one idea and try to say, well, now we're going to be taking away features, or this is the current industry standard, but we're going to go this way, well, then you're only going to be taking away from the consumer, and you're taking a risk because you're trying to create something new while leaving it behind. If it can do the job of both, versatility, I think, is going to be very important, which I think it can right now. If it, and to be honest, I really wasn't expecting this generation of consoles to last more than 6 years. I everyone's like, oh well, the last generation lasted 10 years. I was like, that's crazy long. That was that probably the only time you will see that in any sort of console history of an operational lifespan of 10 years.
Yeah, there
We
was a
are
reason for that though.
finally, yeah, because just the way the hardware and software development worked. And yes, when they did come out, they were actually more powerful than their PC capable counterparts. I
Exactly.
mean,
Like the Xbox
but
One was the first
Xbox One
device.
had about a year and a half on PC,
Yeah, it was
maybe
the
for the
first of its
Xbox
kind
360. Yeah,
to
so
have
that
a. Yeah, go on.
yeah, and it was able to hold its own for a long time. And so you not only had the jump start, you had the development cycle for so what another a good solid 2 years on maybe PC. Yeah, you can go into arguments of, well, this is the point, but let's say 2 years, and then you have an operational lifespan of 4 to 6. Anyways, that's between 6 and 8 years, which is pretty much when the other one started going out, and then they tried to drag it out another year or two, which you were seeing it at the end. Even PlayStation 3 was doing that because they needed to make money back on their console, which they were able to at least make it profitable at the end. If they decided to jump ship, they probably would have lost money on the PlayStation 3 the way it was initially selling. But if they supported the current generation, they actually were able to have people keep on buying the platform, and they ended up making money off of it. So, I mean, there's a huge different, um, number of reasons why they kept that as long as they did, but I really doubt you're ever going to see it, a at least a dedicated console platform last 10 years again. Um, it's not going to happen, especially with the way with content is now and all that
Hmm.
other stuff.
Yeah, I just think that this is going to be a really good thing because the way it's going, if the Xbox platform becomes, part of the Windows platform unified with PC gaming, then what is PlayStation going to do? That's what I want to know. How does PlayStation fight this?
Okay, let's just take this topic and go off in a little corner.
Yeah.
As far as PlayStation goes, we all know that Sony as a whole is absolutely bleeding money. They're hemorrhaging it.
Yeah, that's why they
And
just restructured everything
yeah,
for the
no,
PlayStation.
you're seeing it. You're actually seeing Sony, or at least the investors and people involved are actually, I wouldn't say jumping ship. What they're doing is starting to make a life raft.
Yeah,
They are structuring the brand, the PlayStation brand itself. They are structuring it economically and business and asset wise separate from Sony, to where if
yeah,
Sony starts to go under, they can cut the cord and they are not liable for any other debt or anything like that. That's why the reason why they're making it a subsidiary
yeah,
and a whole lot of other stuff. That way, if Sony starts going under, they can basically say, well, the PlayStation brand is now cut off and we're autonomous, and there's no way that these Sony, debtors can come, a knocking on the PlayStation brand platform and asking for debt collection. That way they can just, cut it off and say, well, Sony's dead, but the PlayStation is alive. There's there's subtle things in there that you can see that, but is it smart? Yeah. Is it like, would I say it's ingenious? Well, you're say, making yourself a life raft, because of the you're burning your own ship. I wouldn't say is intelligent. It's a necessity, and they're handling it well at least. But you're seeing that in Sony as a whole, and whether they're going to have the capital to start supporting these innovations and infrastructures that are going to be required for, the next generation of entertainment and content distribution is has yet to be seen. We really don't know how that's going to pan out, and whether they actually end up going under or not, or how the ownership, works. You really don't know just yet. That's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. But another thing that I was thinking was in terms of exclusives, because we've seen Xbox console exclusives, and then you have like an Xbox game which we think is an Xbox exclusive, which then comes to PC. Quantum Break, perfect example again. Then you've got like Sony exclusives like Street Fighter 5, which is coming to the PC. So what happens with titles like that? I mean, you lots of people say, okay, you need one console and you need a PC, or you have a PC for everything or whatever. But most people, generally speaking, will have an Xbox or a PS4, and then they'll have a gaming PC. Um, so looking at it from a consumer point of view, me personally, I would go for, well, there's two ways of looking at it, because you could say I'll go for the Xbox side and have a gaming PC, but then you'll never see the PlayStation exclusives. On the other hand, you could say I'll have a PlayStation and a PC, in which case I'll have the PlayStation exclusives and I'll have most of the Xbox exclusives on my PC. So that's why some people are saying Microsoft has just killed the Xbox brand, because they're saying there's no reason to own an Xbox now. Do you see what I mean?
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I think that yeah, that is going to affect how the brand is viewed. But what I think is that what they're going for is a complete net or integration of that brand recognition into the environment. It's like how to put it. It's like iTunes is viewed within the Apple ecosystem. iTunes
Okay.
itself is a brand, right? It's a brand within its own right. It's an environment where you buy music and you buy other content, right? Movies,
Yeah,
music,
yeah, fair
other
enough.
stuff, right? But you can still access that stuff outside of just the Apple ecosystem. You can buy an iPod, which is a dedicated device that accesses iTunes, right?
Yeah,
Now, at the same time, though, they've completely integrated it into their ecosystem.
right.
And all they're doing now is more or less taking, let's compare the Xbox to the iPod, right? And you have your online stores and content availability, and now broadening it out into and they're merging it with their entire Windows platform now, instead of it being just Xbox. Now, when you talk about Xbox, you're talking about Microsoft Windows ecosystem as a whole. Yes, you can use it by itself, but you recognize that you can use it integrated with all this other stuff.
Yeah, it's all about the ecosystem.
Exactly. So I hope that that analogy works. At least from what I'm getting at, that's what they're going for.
Yeah, like if you were to go back and look at the video on my channel titled "Is Microsoft the New Apple?" Um, I spoke about Microsoft's aim at their ecosystem in that video, and that was a couple of months ago.
Hmm.
And in that video, I said this is exactly what Microsoft's doing. They're building an ecosystem, and that's why I'm saying that they are the new Apple, because it's one operating system for all of the devices, and it's a bespoke operating system for bespoke devices, which they are now creating. And we also how it turned out for Apple. I mean, there's a reason why they're the most successful company in the world right now. Um, so I think if you can get people into your ecosystem, it's very difficult for the consumer to leave the ecosystem. Like if you started off on Android, chances are you're staying on Android because you're part of that world now. Me, I started off on iOS with an iPhone, and
I've
because
heard, yeah, I've heard a lot of people saying that, even though they do like seeing other platforms, stuff like that, unfortunately, people now feel invested in
exactly, you're
their
tied into it.
platform. Like I have so many of those apps when I guess it's more, even though you could probably just walk away from it, it's still a monetary and you need self-justification on where you're staying. Same thing goes with, I guess, any platform that you can't kind of do what you want with. It does become difficult. Would I? It's like again, PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo. Are you gonna start having to buy the same games over again? Are you gonna use both platforms? That sort of thing.
What do you
Um,
mean?
a lot of people tend to stick with when it comes to one. They like one machine. It's a comfort thing. How many?
No, what I'm saying is, when you said, would you have to buy the same game over again, were you saying as if, there's a multi-platform game and you're a PlayStation 4 gamer and you decide to jump ship to, let's say, a Wii U, would you have to buy the game again? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Would
Yeah.
you are I mean, and that's what I go into. A lot of people just like using one piece of hardware. When it comes down to it, yeah, you do have people that, oh yeah, I don't care, but a lot of people they'll pick one and they'll get comfortable with it. It's just an unspoken thing, and that it happens.
Yeah, it's
Um,
happened with me countless times.
yeah, everyone has their main console, whether it be a PC or their main platform in general. It's what they're comfortable with, and they're going to stick with it. And it's like even though you may have, um, I may have, BioShock on the PC. I also have it on PlayStation 3. But if I want to sit back and relax, I'm going to play it on my Xbox 360 for my BioShock Infinite. It's why because it's a good thing. Yeah, I can, and if I'm going to start having to invest in an entire new platform that I'm going to start using primarily, again, you're forcing yourself into another ecosystem now.
Yeah.
Are you going to have to buy the same content over again? That's a choice that the consumer is going to have to make.
See, that raises another interesting point about this whole thing that Phil Spencer's talking about. Now, let's say I'm a PC gamer and I don't have an Xbox. I fucking hate consoles because they suck, they're underpowered, they're garbage. PC Master Race for the freaking win. Let's say I'm one of those guys, and we know they exist
Mhm.
because we see them on YouTube all the time. Right, so now I'm, PC Master Race, and I'm gonna be, let's say every weekend I stay at my girlfriend's house. And every weekend I've got a Corsair 750D case. It weighs about 30 kilos. I have to lug it around everywhere all the time to play my games because PC Master Race I have biceps. But as a PC gamer, this would incentivize me to buy an Xbox One. Because if I can be like, okay, I've got my PC, I can leave my rig at home, I can just take my Xbox with me, or I can leave my Xbox at my girlfriend's house or whatever, and carry on playing my games when I get there, or just take a small console with me, that's a really big perk, you know? Just from a convenience standpoint. That adds a lot of value, especially when
What
you're
the
buying one game which works across multiple devices.
Well, that's what they're also doing with. Isn't Steam doing like just PC games in general? I mean, here, Nvidia, Grid streaming stuff to where you can bring a pocketable item, like literally something the size of your hand or a wallet,
Yeah,
and plug it in and you call it a day. That's becoming an industry thing too. Um, but again, you're seeing blurring of lines between these dedicated pieces of hardware and their functions. Everything's becoming multifunction. I I would not be surprised and I'm hitting this 30-year mark because I'm not going to say it's going to happen in 10, but in 30 years, we're going to have our unified devices to where it pretty much gets any of our content, whatever our mobile phones or communication device that we're going to be bringing around is, or we're going to
yeah,
have on our person, that is probably going to be a unified content device that's going to have our life in it.
yeah,
It's just, I can just see that happening a mile away.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I've just remembered. Well, you probably heard me typing. I've just remembered what that streaming console was called that I tested. It was called On Live. Remember
That's
that?
right, and it failed miserably. But again, you see a lot of even like PC Master Race and everything else, and you're gonna have a lot of different um, people with a lot of different tastes. Like you're definitely gonna have the I'm gonna build the absolute god beast, um, god killer computer. That's part of the the, the allure of that market. And then you're gonna have the person that just wants versatility of, having a little Steam box and they like their digital content games, things like that. Um, you're gonna start seeing that with the Xbox platform or the Xbox brand now, where you can have your heavy hitter, PC titles or, AAA titles that will run on heavy dedicated hardware. And then you're going to have your, small indie titles or casual titles to where they're run on a toaster or a built-in freaking app on your smart TV or whatever. I think that's the end result of what Phil Spencer is going to want. Instead of the Xbox brand being attached to a hardware, it will literally be a just that, just the brand.
Yeah.
So you won't have a brand. Yeah, I'm sure like you'll have the dedicated, Xbox, but I really doubt that that's why you have Xbox on Windows 10 right now. It's still Xbox. It's still that environment,
Yeah,
but it's
they
not an
actually
actual
mentioned that.
Xbox.
They mentioned that on one of these articles that I was reading,
Yeah.
where they said we've brought Xbox onto Windows 10, and it is. I use it on my Windows 10 laptop all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, you're referring to Xbox now as the environment and not the actual piece of hardware, which is what they're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of it's interesting how there's a nice parallel here between the Xbox brand and the Windows brand, because Windows was always up until Windows 10, Windows was a product and it's now become a service. Xbox was a product and it's now becoming a service. It's
Exactly.
really cool. Uh
And I think that Windows is realizing that they're getting away from all these different, product-based things to where people just buy something and they call it a day and they walk away. What they're doing now is that they're making people invest their lives into your company. And that matters, and they know that.
Yeah, I mean, because look at like one of the things with buying digital download games is that let's say that I'm an Xbox gamer and I thought, okay, you know what, screw Microsoft, I hate them. I'm moving over to Sony. If I had all of my games as physical copies, I could sell that Xbox and I
Yeah.
could sell the
It's
games
it's
and
a
I could
it's a
easily
tangible
jump ship.
investment.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
exactly.
yeah, being digitally invested into a platform, you can't sell anything. You can sell the
Yep.
device itself, but you're not getting your money back on your games.
And that's also one reason why I do like having again it gives all it is it's a way of controlling power, and whether we're stating that against Microsoft or not, every company wants that. That's why you saw Microsoft make the statement that infamous E3 conference of used games being worthless. Sony was going to do that too. Sony was going to do that of the PlayStation 3, which not many people remember. But they didn't do it at the E3. It was stated that, oh yeah, we're going to mark the discs and it will only be locked to one person, and
Hmm.
and the fan base and gamers like they made a huge uproar. So Sony stepped back and say, yeah, okay, PS3 won't do that. We're good.
Yeah, the
And
thing
then
is though,
Xbox tried doing it with the 8th gen consoles, and they nope. And then Sony's like, yeah, we're following suit. Nope, we're not doing it either.
no, but that's the thing though. I mean, all right, let's put it this way: the Xbox 360 was winning the console war in quotation marks. I hate that, but anyways,
No, no, no.
the
Let's be fair. The Wii won the console war in
okay,
sales.
okay, I'm not counting the Wii because I don't. Uh, I don't want to talk about the Wii because
As far as
that's
influence, yes, the Xbox in terms of influence and market influence, I think the Xbox was the clear victor
yeah, the
in that
Xbox
respect.
360 did win that generation, but at the same time, now this is my way of looking at it. Now E3 came along, Microsoft's going to unveil the Xbox One, Sony's unveiling the PS4. Microsoft's conference was 24 to 48 hours before the PlayStation conference. Now, if PlayStation had their conference first, it would have changed the whole game. The only
Oh,
reason,
of course,
yeah,
yes, we
because
know
they would have
because
come out and said, and they
they
would have
would have
said,
come out first and they would have gotten
"Hello,
the brunt,
this is
which
our DRM box," and
yeah,
Microsoft would have stepped
which it
back just
people
like
are
Sony
fickle,
did.
consumers are fickle, but that's not the point. The point is that people, regardless, they know they want somebody to blame. They want to make sure that they have that power and control. When somebody tells them that they're, losing that control over their own stuff, they're gonna feel butthurt. And and I don't know if anyone sees it, but that's what they're doing. They're taking away the tangibility of a game. Regardless of what you think you have in your hand right now, if you pick up your copy of Halo 5, that is not the game Halo 5. That will not play whatsoever without internet connection. You cannot take a fresh Xbox One without internet and play that. You cannot just connect to the internet and install and play off the disc. It has to have supported content. All that disc is telling your Xbox that you can play the digital copy that they're temporarily activating on your account. So,
That's how all of the consoles are now.
yes, they are, except the Wii U, which I admit that that's the only generation that still plays off the disc.
Like I said, I'm not talking about the Wii.
It's the Wii U.
I
You're
don't
not
care.
understanding.
I don't
But
care.
but yes, the big heavy hitters now, because let's admit it, admittingly the Wii U, yeah, that's it's a flopped console. But getting off topic on that, yes, the discs that you guys have, except for select games, very few games, like some of the indie titles, I think,
Yeah.
um, like Shovel Knight, for instance, on the PS4, for instance,
Oh,
that's all that's
dude,
on the disc.
is Shovel
They
Knight on
can't.
the Xbox yet?
No, they canceled it.
What? Why?
Yeah, they canceled the physical copy.
Okay, but is it on there as a digital download?
Oh yeah, it's been there forever.
Why have? Oh God, I've completely
Yeah,
missed it.
they can't. Yeah, it's been there forever,
Oh
and then
God,
the
I need to
physical
get
copy
that.
came out. Yeah, I got that. I literally waited and waited until the Wii U came out with a physical copy.
When I
Why?
went to
Because
the
it will work in 20 years because it's all on the disc and the console just works. But
okay.
getting
Now
back on topic, that
wait,
single
before you
disc
carry
that
on.
you guys no, getting back on topic, that single disc that you guys
Uh,
hold, whether it be your Call of Duties or your Wolfensteins, a good example is look at the difference between the multi-platform games that you have or multi-generation platform games. The Xbox 360 version versus the Xbox One version. Um, the Xbox One version of the, let's say, Wolfenstein has 4 discs. Um,
what?
yeah, the Xbox One has 1 disc. The Xbox 360 has 4 discs. Four
That
discs
sounds right.
for Wolfenstein: The New Order. Why? Because there's so much game content, and they have to make sure that it installs and plays correctly.
Yeah, because a DVD can hold 8 gigs, whereas a Blu-ray can hold 50. So
Exactly. But the point is that even then, all that data is still only an install thing on that Blu-ray. That Blu-ray literally is worthless as a game.
okay,
All it
but
is that it pops in. You could technically probably just scratch the shit out of part of it, and as long as the license section is good, it will still read it just fine.
okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Okay, now I get your argument about physical copies rule the world, right? Now I'm
Oh
going to
no,
go.
they don't rule the world. I'm just saying that they're more beneficial to the actual consumer.
Oh no.
And
Okay, that's what I'm advocating. What I'm saying is I'm going back to your argument, which was about 45 seconds ago, where I said hold on a second, and you said no. Okay, okay. You said let's say you bought the physical copy of Shovel Knight on your Wii U or whatever it was, um, and you're like, okay, I've got the physical copy. In 10 years' time, I can just pop it into the console and it will work, right?
yeah,
And that's your benefit to the consumer. Now, on the flip side, I think that having Shovel Knight as a digital download game would be more beneficial to me than having a physical copy that works on one console. I think having the digital download game
There,
on, let's say, this new Windows platform.
understandably, there are benefits to that,
Yeah, because number
but
one, I can't lose it. Number two, if my console dies, it will work on any other hardware device that supports the Windows platform. Um, and because it's a license, I can, I'm never going to lose it. It won't physically become damaged,
you're right, it won't
and
physically become
I
damaged.
won't
But
have to buy it again.
here's the key difference of you as a consumer. How much control do you actually have over that?
No, that's where trust comes in.
Yeah, it is trust, but as a consumer, if you have a physical copy and a machine that works and it doesn't need any outside input to work, you control and actually have that assurance and product. You actually have the product. If you have a digital copy that requires all X. Now, here's the difference. In Xbox One, a physical copy is actually better because if, say you lose internet connection, you can't even play a single player game on a digital copy. It will not let you. It is always on DRM. I know that for a fact. It's happened. I've had a few digital games. They shut down when Xbox Live's having problems. Period. It doesn't work. Now, my disc-based version of my games, even though Xbox Live is disconnected, I can still play them. The Xbox will still register that I'm playing them at the very least.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a huge difference when your internet goes down or Xbox Live goes through and you can't even play a single player game on a console that doesn't need internet connection to play the freaking game. Or here's a better thing. 20 years down the line, the developer for whatever reason decides to pull support for it. Or servers go down and that's part of your terms and conditions saying, well, we can choose to shut down the servers and you agreed to it. So if you don't have it loaded to your device right now, we're not really going to support it at all. So you can't download it again because you agreed to this terms of service. You're at the mercy of a terms of service that they can change whenever you want, and you don't have the ability to say, I still have the game, I can play it when I want, and I'm not dependent on the person. And going back in, hopefully on topic, because we've been rambling on, which this show has a chronic case of doing.
Fun fact for you, dear listener: Nexus wanted this podcast to be 5 minutes long.
This is why I wanted it to be 5 minutes. We called it, hey, we'll talk about it, and then we end it without, the rants. But the rants always take it.
No, I knew this would happen.
Oh, but yes, you have that. You basically, the consumer has to give up control in a digital-only environment, and they have none. But when you're able to physically collect for stuff, and you're not dependent on the company after they've literally handed you the product, that's the difference between a product and a service, which I finally get around to my point of we were debating between a product and a service. A product, the person hands you, and you're able to do what you want and use it just fine, and you can walk away with it. A service, you are completely and utterly dependent on the person serving you, whether it's a software service or somebody giving you freaking table service. It doesn't matter. As soon as they decide to stop, you have nothing.
Okay, so all of this physical copy championing coming from the gentleman who has over 1,000 games on Steam.
Yes, and guess what? I buy those physically. BioShock, I have on Steam.
You've got 1,000 physical copies of every game you have on Steam.
Anything that's not on digital, if it's digital only, that's where a lot of them come from. A lot of them are tiny little digital indie games, which you don't have anyways. And what is it? The indie box that I
Yeah.
referred you to?
Yeah.
Because in indie games that have her physical copies, that's why I refer that to you. But yes, if I can get it on physical copy, I will get it on physical copy. And when it comes to Steam, I do have a lot of nickel and dimed digital only titles, so it doesn't really matter because there's not a physical copy option.
we were going to discuss some other topics on this podcast, but I don't think we're going to now because it's overrun by a long time. But saying that, I do have an
May
update for you.
may I
Okay,
have a Nexus minute now?
no.
For yes, I'm taking it. For you listeners that are still with us, bless your heart. I'm surprised that you're sticking through this. As far as different topics go, guys, if you would like to make us branch out into anywhere from current I know you like the electronics industry and obviously big heavy hitting news, things like that. But if you want us to go into other smaller topics like say the retro game world or even the smaller current gen games of what's going on, um, like the recent releases, things like that. Go ahead, shoot us in the comments. I'm probably more of the retro fan than DK here. I mean, he apparently still has his Mega Drive games in an attic, which they should be on your shelf proudly displayed.
And no, no, no. You can ask my girlfriend this. If I had the shelf space, my original plan was to have my Master System 1 leading all the way up to my Xbox One on a shelf, and I wanted. And no, no, check this out. I was gonna have all the consoles laid out on shelves, right? And each console would have a little tag in front of it telling you what year it was manufactured. And I wanted my bedroom to look like a console museum, and she protested.
Well, that's your problem, not mine.
No, it will happen, whether she likes it or not. It's happening. So yeah, if you're listening, yeah, she will listen to. She listens to all of these episodes. She's amazing. But but yeah, it will happen one day. So beware. You can text me after you've heard this on YouTube.
Yeah, so if you guys want to exit out of the realm of news and go into more actual interactive things, um, there are a lot of things that we can do as a community. If you guys are interested in listening, I try getting DK into trying something new, even though he's fearfully um, combative sometimes to try something out. Like I'm trying to shove some anime down his throat, but he's saying, oh
It's
time, it's a
time.
show."
It's time. If I had time, I would make a video a day or at least 3 videos a week on YouTube. I just don't have time. I need to quit my job.
So which means, guys, give this poor bastard some views so he can go YouTube full time.
That would be amazing. Okay, so are we done with this? Oh, quick thing: Forza Motorsport 6 is coming to Windows 10. It's coming as a game called Apex. Forza Motorsport 6 Apex. Blah 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 blah. Unreal. Not Unreal. Gears of War Ultimate is now on PC as well. Quantum Break is coming to PC on the same day as the Xbox One. It's cross-buy and cross-play. So there you have it. There's more to come with this whole thing about the Xbox One PC unification. So stay tuned for more of that stuff in the future. I have a couple of announcements regarding DND, the DeeKay Nexus discussion in general. Right now, this is 100% YouTube. It's in a YouTube podcast sort of format. What I'm hoping to do, I've just sorted out some server hosting. So all of the previous episodes, including this one, will eventually be uploaded onto podcast hosting services like iTunes, TuneIn Radio, and your favorite podcast places where you go to get your podcasts. Future episodes will also be on the podcasting apps, including YouTube. YouTube is always going to be there. And we are hoping to make this a weekly show, which would be uploaded every Monday. So, in the show that's uploaded every Monday, we will be talking about the previous week's news, updates, content, that sort of stuff, and maybe some random stuff on the side. So let us know what you think of that. This may be a weekly show coming to a YouTube and podcasting app near you. Oh
Yeah, and
yes.
make sure that if you guys like certain formats or lengths or any other direct topics, tell us in the comments. That actually does help us out. Um, I would love to see us be able to have a full podcast schedule set up, and then for you guys, maybe put out like 5-minute digestible bites for those of you in our YouTube space, so you can listen to here and there, which is kind of like the cliff notes of the long show. But if you guys want to hear that, or see us do that in as far as content divvying up, just tell us. It will be helpful.
Yeah, that would be cool. Alright, I think that pretty much sums it up. I think we've covered everything, and if we haven't, we'll cover it later.
And if Nexus doesn't decide to strangle DeeKay here for our spectacular opening that we did, you guys ask him in the comments on what our second take of our opening was. If he doesn't add this in afterward.
I'll add it in. I'll add it in. So stay tuned after the outro. There will be a small outtake, which you might find interesting. It's not safe for young children, so avert their ears. But yeah, I think we're done. Hello?
God, I wish I could slap you sometimes.
You can't. Fun fact, people, Nexus is a 6-hour time difference away.
Hey, I know that won't stop me.
Oh well. I think we're done. So, Nexus, do you want to say anything to our audience before we leave? Or shall I go ahead with the outro?
Well, I was done out of character a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please check back for episode 5 coming soon to a YouTube near you. I'm DeeKay.
And I'm Nexus of Ice, and I try to get him to relax whenever I can.
Yep, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you hated it, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!
No.
Let's just do it again.
Oh, God damn it, you. Just no. Quick, to the point. If you keep interest. I'm not doing it again. I will screw it up otherwise. You heard me.
No. Let's do it again. I wasn't happy
Nope.
with it.
I'm not doing it. It sounds fine.
No, it's not fine. It has to be perfect. One more time. We have to say the topic before the intro.
Okay,
the topic comes before the intro.
Oh, whatever. Okay.
Hello, ladies and gents. I'm DeeKay.
I'm Nexus of Ice, and I just rammed DeeKay with my huge cock because he decided to do this again.
I can't believe you just did that.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to put that in as an intro?
I might put it at the end as an outro.